I'm joined now on the line from the U.S. by Michelle Gavin, a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations and a former special assistant to President Barack Obama. So good to have you on Newsnight tonight, Michelle. Well, it depends on which side of the divide you belong. Some say that the Democrat Harris, the vice president, missed an opportunity concerning the very first question as to how the Americans have fared on the economic front. Have they fared better, than when you met America, economy-wise? Did she miss an opportunity? And of course, I'd like to get your overall assessment of that debate.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. And, overall, I think it was an incredibly strong night for Vice President Harris. She had a lot of business to take care of, in part kind of introducing herself to the American people. She's been a senator, she's been our vice president, but of course, this is an abbreviated campaign for her. So I am not surprised that she took the beginning of the debate to remind people who she is, what informs her perspective, and then to go on to draw a very clear contrast, a very clear choice for voters between, someone who came across as competent, well-informed, and someone with an appropriate temperament for leadership, versus someone kind of raving lunatic talking about how he saw someone on TV who said someone killed his cat. I mean, it was a pretty striking difference.
Well, but some would say on both sides, policy-wise, they didn't do a good job of stating clearly exactly what they would do if they became president. Do you agree on both sides, both on Harris's side and Trump?
I do agree. I think it wasn't a particularly policy-rich discussion. I think that Vice President Harris was very specific and clear around certainly reproductive rights, around her plans for the child tax credit, et cetera. But I would have loved to have heard more details from both candidates. Certainly, at the end, they got a climate change question, and we didn't get a lot of meat on the bones about what is really an existential issue for all of us.
Yes, absolutely. And still on the question of the economy, whether Americans are better off, on the economic front than when Harris met it. What were you expecting? What could she have said at this debate? Or did nerves get the better of her?
Again, I imagine the debate prep and strategy involved early on, looking directly into the camera and talking to the American people and sort of making it clear who she was. So that I think was not a mistake, but she did go on to talk extensively about the economy, about the economic mess that the Biden-Harris administration inherited. Obviously the pandemic affected economies around the world, and explained how a number of President Trump's or former President Trump's proposals, particularly his frequent invocation of tariffs as something that's going to solve all the problems in our economy. I think she did a good job of reminding people who ends up paying when you just raise tariffs on all these imports, and it's consumers, it's the American people.
Well, you said earlier that she conducted herself in a seemingly, presidential manner, but she did not fail to, take the war to Trump using some of Trump's typical words like disgrace. She actually pointedly looked at Trump and said, look, world leaders, global leaders think that he's a disgrace. How did that come across to you?
Well, I think that for a lot of people in this country, people particularly who have served in the military, have loved ones who've served in the military, some of the ways that former President Trump has talked about people who have been willing to risk everything in service of our country, that is disgraceful. So I'm certainly not offended by the word. I think that perhaps it was a tactic to use some of his kind of frequent taglines and turn the tables a bit. I don't know, but I certainly didn't think it was crossing the line.
Let's talk about the undecideds. There are questions as to whether the undecideds coming away from this debate, do they know Vice President Kamala Harris better in a way that will, give them confidence to go to the polls and, vote for her?
Well, the undecideds, it's interesting to think about because it is a pretty clear contrast that we have before us right now. And I don't know what additional information people are looking for. So I'm sure it's a mixed bag, but I do think she did a good job showing us who she is. Empathetic, tough, and fundamentally optimistic about what's possible in America. And I think those things, contrasted very starkly with the former president.
We'll have to leave it there. Michelle Gavin, Senior Fellow, Council on Foreign Relations. Thank you very much for joining us on Newsnight.